Good morning. We just heard about being versus seeming, or sometimes being versus doing. And that is the heart of Agile. That's what we're really about. And it's sometimes hard to fully understand. And what I'm going to take you through is what that really looks like and how we can actually arrive at this mystical promised land called Agile. First, a little bit about myself. I'm really blessed to be in this place where I'm traveling around the world doing culture and leadership training through the Scrum Alliance's certified Agile leadership training. And it's called a training, but it's really, for me, more like an experience. It's a way to help people experience and connect in with what is this being Agile about, and how do we actually allow this to arrive in organizations? How do we invite it in? And I use the word inviting because we're talking about a very different way of approaching people and approaching organizations. I started writing about this 5 years ago with my Agile Adoption and Transformation Survival Guide, Working with Culture. This was an attempt to help us start this journey of stopping causing damage to ourselves, to people we work with, and to the organizations through this thing called Agile. And Agile, like anything else, can be used in ways that are very healthy, very good, and there are ways in which we can use it to cause harm. So what I'm giving you is 5 years of learning from myself and from all the people I've talked with all over the world at conferences. Let's go on. So what I want to do is start with, before I share anything about my story, to stress the importance of learning versus unlearning and how you can get the most out of what I'm going to share with you. F. Scott Fitzgerald said, "The test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposed ideas in the mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function." So you'll have your own ideas, and I'm going to share new ideas. And the invitation is to keep them both in your mind at the same time and listen fully to what I'm saying.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
Culture is the number one challenge with Agile. This is the truth. We have amazing industry research from version 1 that tells us that Agile is failing in organizations. This is the truth. We run into the ability to change organizational culture, resistance to change, somehow parts of the organization being stuck, not having the people who show up in the right way. We have situations where management support, that we're attempting these Agile initiatives without management of the organization actually supporting us. There's no way we can actually succeed with the way we're approaching things right now. We can have little pockets of success, yes, but a fundamental rethink is required. And I'm going to give you what that fundamental rethink looks like. We heard this in the opening, that Agile practices or doing Agile, doing the practices, learning the process, is very different from the Agile mindset or being Agile. Everyone here in this room has a good understanding of the practices, what it looks like to do Scrum or Kanban or some Agile process. That's not where the heart of Agile lives. It lives with the being Agile, the mindset. And I'm going to take you on a journey to say, how do we actually arrive at that in our organizations? This is a picture of the Tower of Babel. It is incomplete. What has been constructed is very beautiful, but it's incomplete. Agile is a beautiful, wonderful way to approach teams. It's a beautiful, wonderful way to approach teams. And as we've seen from the truth, from the research, it is wholly inadequate for approaching organizations. It is wholly inadequate for approaching organizations. And what we do is we try to cobble things onto it to make it work. And this too does not work. That's what we're seeing with the research. That we're getting killed by this thing called culture. So if you want to use Agile in your organization and have it truly flourish and succeed, we need to understand this thing called culture. And we need to work with it as a first-class citizen. So to get to the Agile organization, this is a trail. We need to find our way. And to get to this peak of this hill, this mountain, it's not that there's one path. There are many paths. But these paths will share certain common characteristics. And I'm going to share with you one path, the path that I've discovered, a path that I know works, a path that's been tested and true. And other people have started taking up this path and use this path for themselves. So it is a good path. You may find another path, a path that's your own unique path, by taking what is useful from this. And you'll know it's the right path if its point has the same essential properties. And this is how we may consciously approach Agile. We want this thing called Agile in our organizations. And the way to actually get there is to stop and put Agile aside for the moment and look at what is the organizational context? What is the culture? And when we look at this and create this organizational context and culture where Agile may actually flourish, then Agile may flourish. And we achieve that dream in our hearts. Because everyone's here because they have a dream in their hearts of having a place where people enjoy coming to work, where our organizations are successful and thriving. And in order to do that, the leaders are actually the ones who are creating this context. The executives, the managers. So they're actually involved. They need to lead to create this context. We can't do without them. And how will they get that understanding? The only way they will get that understanding is for us, people here in this room, to help them get that understanding. So when we change how we show up, how we invite them, how we act, then they may understand what they need to do to create the organizational cultural context. So we may actually invite Agile into the organization in a very beautiful way. So let's take a look at culture. Oftentimes people think this is culture. This is a North American context. If you have a foosball table, then we're a cool, hip company. Sometimes even we provide free snacks. Hey, look, we've got a pop machine, or we have a beer fridge that we have on Friday afternoons. So we're a cool company to work at. There's more to it than that. Edgar Schein, who's written this massive tome on culture and leadership, wrote this: if you do not manage culture, it manages you. And you may not even be aware of the extent to which this is happening. This is why culture is the #1 challenge with Agile. This is why Agile is failing in organizations. Lou Gerstner, who was reinventing IBM some time ago, said this: I came to see in my time at IBM that culture isn't just one aspect of the game. It is the game. For leadership, if they want to win at business, culture is the game. So let's look at culture. I'm going to share my model or sense-making model of culture. So culture is this wibbly-wobbly thing. And I used the way to explain it from Doctor Who. Are there any Doctor Who fans out there? Right. Doctor Who, the expert on time and time travel, he says, well, time is this timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly thing that connects everything. We can think of culture the same way. It's hard to put our finger on it, but it connects everything. Everything in our company is connected to culture. There are two parts of this, the consciousness and the structures. Let's talk about the structures first. The structures are what we usually pay attention to when we're looking at what's happening in our organization. The organizational structure, the roles, process, pay, policies, decision-making, feedback systems. These are all things we can point to. This is how we do this thing. It's the things. And there's something else important, consciousness. Consciousness. Sort of this energetic property of how we're showing up. Right? This harkens us back to the Agile mindset, some property that's hard to describe, but we know is so important. This is what we heard at the opening. There's something really important that's hard to touch. That's the thing that will help us get to Agile. And I think about it as the identity, values, beliefs, behaviors of every single person in the organization. That collectively, that shapes the energetic properties, the consciousness of an organization. The purpose of the organization, if there is one, oftentimes organizations are confused and don't have a clear purpose. We can ask questions. Is there safety for people? Do they feel safe? Is there trust? Do we value people as human beings? What are the unwritten rules and norms? Because oftentimes the leaders say this, but they act this way. And there's an unwritten rule that we don't question that. We don't talk about it. And that is the culture of our organization. So how is it possible for us to actually do anything? And how do we actually gain any success? Oh, actually, I want to say one more thing. The most common thing that we do in Agile right now, because we can, because it's easy, is we do our work down here. We do our work in this area. And very specifically, we take process and we pull on it. And the organizational culture, does it move? No, it stays where it is. And we pull and pull and pull like an elastic band until eventually it snaps back. And it's very, very painful. This is the most common thing that happens with Agile, is this. And that's how we may understand this. The other thing that I want to say here is when we look at the Agile Manifesto, I think I saw Alexei in the back. We have this very first line is people over process. This is about the people. This is about the process. So what I'm actually giving you here is an important upgrade. When we look at Agile at an organizational level, this is what we look at. People over process. This is the upgraded map to help us navigate the complexity of our organizations. So I'm going to explain to you the most common way that you can easily succeed with Agile in your organizations. And looking around the room, probably many of you are doing this, and some of you may know you're doing this, but all of you are doing this to some extent already. And I'm just explaining how to make this work really, really, really well. And the most common pattern in the whole of Agile Kingdom is to create a culture bubble. And essentially the way this works is that in our overall organizational culture, we have certain behaviors. Command and control, leaders who don't listen, and somewhere along the way, we have one leader who gets it. It could be at any level of the hierarchy. It could be a team lead, a manager, a director, a VP, a CTO. If it's a CEO, then it's the whole company. But it's some leader who gets it, who has in their being a connection with valuing people, with the spirit of Agile. And they can create underneath them a bubble of Agile, a bubble of a different culture system, a bubble of a different way of being. And within this, we can shift the culture. Within this, we can invite something like the Agile mindset, invite a people-oriented way of being where people come and have fire in their belly and feel valued. Put up your hand if you're experiencing something like this, where there's a manager who really gets it, and underneath them that you see real change and real, okay. So I hear it, it's happening in some places. So I'm going to give you some of the secrets of making this work amazingly well. It's very, very important. Listen carefully. When in here we're having so much joy, we're having so much success, when we start parading it around and saying, hey, look how great we are, we paint a big target on our back saying, shoot me, please. Because the others there will be jealous, they will not want it. They'll want our success, but they'll be afraid because they're a different culture system. They're functioning differently, that will look like a threat to them. So the other way to approach it is to keep it secret. Keep it safe, right? That's what we want to do here, is to internally celebrate for sure, but not outside. If people are interested in what we're doing, they will come find us. We don't need to broadcast it and say, hey, look how special we are. This is how we invite the organizational antibodies to come out and attack this. The other thing to understand here is that this is a different organizational culture than we have here, and they'll value different things. They may value things like a Gantt chart, right? Which in our world of Agile, we say, ooh, this makes no sense. There's no value in this. But for them, it has value because they're coming from a different cultural context. So we may build these adapters to share with them. You want a Gantt chart? Oh, yes, of course. Here it is. And we'll do it with a smile on our face because we get to give it to them with the privilege of knowing that we get to have this little bubble. And we get to have this wonderful way of working inside this larger organization that doesn't really value it. In my past, I would have done things like saying, no, that makes no sense, and I'd fight and fight and fight. When we fight with the outside system here, we're just shortening our lifespan. That's all we're doing. We're shortening our lifespan. So if you want to keep this sustaining, healthy, it's to pay our taxes, to give the external system what we want, and be grateful for the chance to do that within this system. And I'll talk about another myth here. There's a myth that somehow this spreads. And suddenly if we do this, these little pockets, these little pilot projects, that everyone else will suddenly get it and it will make sense to them. And it's not true. Usually the gap between this culture and this culture is so great that this will be seen as a threat. And the only thing we can really hope for is that other little bubbles will sprout up for people who really get it and are interested. The most common long-term growth pattern for Agile from this is that this person leaves and goes somewhere else at a senior level, and they build a bigger bubble somewhere else. That's actually the most common pattern for growth. And this is how we're growing Agile right now, is in these little pockets. But I have a dream. And you have a dream for something bigger than this, for something that includes entire organizations. This is interesting. Something happened here. Okay. So what I'd like you to do is stand up in pairs and discuss with your neighbor culture. Which parts of this culture diagram are relevant to what you're focusing on now, and which parts are missing from what's happening right now in the work that's happening in your organization, and what's happening around a bubble if you're in one. Okay, so everyone stand up. This requires moving your body. Get in groups of 2 or 3 and share what's going on around this in your organization and what's happening with the culture bubble.
Please take your seats.
Just notice the energy in the room right now. There will be time for questions at the end. So if you have a question, please write it down. So there's 4 parts. There's Agile, there's the organizational context, there's leaders, and there's ourselves. So let's go on to leaders now. Edgar Schein, I guess I'm in his fan club. He says this: when we examine culture and leadership closely, we see that there are 2 sides of the same coin. Neither can be understood by itself. So when we're saying that culture is the number one problem around the success with Agile in organizations, and we apply this statement, we suddenly come to the realization that leaders are the number one challenge with Agile in organizations. There's something about leaders and how they show up that is limiting what may happen with Agile. And we haven't been paying attention to it closely. And that's why we have not had the success that we dream of in our hearts. When we ask the senior leadership of an organization, and we say, who owns the success? Who created all the good results here? Who's responsible for that? They'll smile and they say, oh, we are. And then we'll say, and you're talking to me here. The reason we're having this conversation about Agile is because the operational characteristics of your organization are not the way you'd like them to be. And they're saying, yes, that's right. The way we're structured now is not working for us. We're not competitive enough. We need to operate differently to survive and thrive in the future. And they say, aha, okay, great. And what you're imagining is some other organizational way of being, one that's more fluid, dynamic, responsive, powerful, dare I say, agile? And they say, yes. You've listened. This is exactly what we want for our organization. We want an organization to become this kind of organization. And I say, are you sure? And they say, yes, this is what we want. And this is where it gets sticky. I asked them, this future kind of organization, the dynamic, flexible, agile, what kind of leadership does it have? What is the behavior of these leaders at the very top of this company? Is it the same as this kind of leadership behavior of the company that has this operational characteristics? Or is it different? And these are executives, so they get it immediately. Oh yeah, it has to be different kind of leadership behaviors. And then they get it. They go, oh, wait a second, I'm the leader. I need to have different leadership behaviors. Oh, wait a second, it's on me? No. I hired you with Agile to go and fix my people. Not to talk to me about how I'm showing up. So I say, well, we have a couple of options. We can abandon this dream you have of a nimble, flexible organization. That's option 1. Option 2 is you as leaders can grow. That's option 2. Or option 3 is you all leave and we bring in new leaders who can operate this way. And maybe this is actually a good idea for you if you're the founder and you're invested in how much money this company makes. That may actually be a really good decision. And this is the truth. These are the 3 options. Drop the future flexible organization, grow, or exit. Because organizational behavior follows leadership behavior. If we don't have the leadership behavior, if we don't have leaders who are leading, it won't work. We can't get to this place. And I learned this when I was working as Agile coach, and I noticed that when I was working with this leader, how they showed up, how they got it, how they valued people, that was always the limit of how far Agile would go in organizations. I already knew this a long time ago, that the consciousness of this leader is the limit. With how ready they are to lead, how ready they are to trust, to value people as human beings, that is the limit. So put up your hand if you've been on an airplane and you know the safety briefing. So this is the Ukrainian, Russian, English version. It's the same for all of us because it's a universal truth. When we are in a situation where there's something going on, something important going on, we put the oxygen mask on ourselves first, and then we assist others. And this is what we need from leadership, is that they need to put the oxygen mask on themselves first, and then assist others in the organization. And when we do this, and we have leaders who do this, then we can invite an organizational context and a culture where people flourish. And we can invite in this beautiful thing called Agile. But this is what we need to do that. So let's just check in with you. I'll do a listening exercise here. If you pull up your phones and put in, where's the URL? What is going on? Okay, it hasn't come up yet. It's okay, give it a moment. If you go to polev.com/orgs. I don't know, maybe there's something going on with the Wi-Fi. No, it should be working. I'll give it another 5 seconds, otherwise. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'm gonna give up on this. Okay, so please stand up again and discuss in pairs. How willing is our leadership to lead? How willing are they, instead of supporting Agile, which is the kiss of death, how willing are they to lead and grow and show themselves in acting in different ways, and show them what Agile, show everyone what Agile really looks like, and invite everyone else on that journey. Please stand up. Please, everyone stand up. 1, 2, 3, go. So now let's come to ourselves and how we're showing up. It's our turn. And the first part of this is honoring the leader's freedom to choose. We saw a clip from the movie The Matrix where Morpheus is offering Neo a choice. And he's not saying, hey, Neo, take this one. Take this one. He's not doing that. He's giving him a clear and free choice. And the only way that you can help the leaders you work with is to give them a free and clear choice. That means that you need to let go of what you want. Because if you have a dream for Agile, for that organization, and you're so attached to it that that's the only thing you're going to let that leader choose, they won't choose it. They will not choose it. I've proven this with my own consulting practice. I've tested this out with other people. That when we're attached to what we want, we will not get it. It's okay to like joy at work, like Agile, but when we hold it lightly, in a place where we give freedoms the choice, it's their organization. They're the executives. They're given the power to choose what's best for the organization. It's their choice, not our choice. And when we honor them and value them and respect them, remember, Agile is about people. When we respect them as people, as human beings, and respect their choice, then they actually will start to choose something that's beautiful, that's around growth, because they'll be in control and we'll be trusting them, valuing, supporting them. So the way we start inviting Agile is by living Agile in the way we work with executives and giving them freedom to choose. What needs to happen for this to happen is something profound. It's the death of the Agile evangelist that lives inside of you. In order to allow the bigger dream of what you want for organizations to happen, the reason why you're pursuing Agile, that smaller part of you, the Agile evangelist, actually needs to die. And this is where it comes to you. So let's talk about you. Yes, you, the person sitting here in this room. Remember how it was uncomfortable for the managers and the executives when they discovered they were the limit? Now, I'd invite you to consider that you are the limit. My understanding of the truth is that you sitting here are the limit for what is happening around you. It's not the system, it's not the executives, not the managers. It's how you're actually approaching them. It's how you're actually inviting them. It's what you're actually doing to approach and invite a different way of being. And that's what I'm asking you to consider here and reflect on. So leaders go first. So that means in order for us to help the leaders, we need to go first with ourselves. We need to look at ourselves to see how we're showing up. Mahatma Gandhi said, be the change that you want to see in the world. Or simply start with yourself. I've been living this for myself. I told you about how I noticed that the leader was always the limit in the organization. The rest of that story is that, I'd like to help these leaders create places where we have this beautiful culture. And they say, the only way I can help them is if they grow. And then I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, Michael, can you help them grow? And I looked at myself and I was honest. I said, no, I am a well-intentioned asshole. That's the truth of it. There's no way I was showing up in a way that could help them grow. So I set about putting the oxygen mask on myself first and growing myself. And I had this hypothesis that if I change how I show up, then I can invite leaders to go on these beautiful journeys. And then the hypothesis was proven again and again and again. And now other people who I'm sharing this message with are proving this in their own lives. That when we change how we show up, the amazingness that we have in our hearts, what we dream of, will actually unfold. So this is the model. This is how we may consciously approach Agile. So we have this love here. It's very beautiful. We create an organizational cultural context where this may actually flourish. For that to happen, the leaders have to go first. The leaders have to lead. And for that to happen, we, the people here in this room, have to really examine how we're showing up so we can help the leaders, so they can help create the organizational context, so we can invite Agile in. This is the only way, the only path that I know of in existence for inviting Agile wholly, fully into an organization. So it starts with ourselves and learning how to honor these leaders, how to support them, and changing how we show up. So we start actually creating a model of what we want them to look like, what we want this to look like, so we can invite in Agile. That means for us, very concretely, it means being a really good team player yourself, because that's what Agile's about. So I'm not going to share this. I'll share a few things, and we'll move time for questions. Actually, no, I will share this. So success from focus on people. We know that Agile is people over process. Agile is about people. So now that I've told you how to approach it, what are the things to focus on? So I'm going to give you some very concrete, specific things that you can focus on. Project Aristotle, Google, one of the most successful companies, they looked at what happens in their highest performing teams. And what they found is the truth of organizations, of teams. They said there are two things that matter the most. The first is psychological safety. That when people feel psychologically safe, amazingness will happen. So just reflect on your current environment. How psychologically safe is it for the people around you? How safe is it for the executives you're working with? How safe is it for you? Because if you're not feeling psychologically safe, how can you do the amazing work that you need to do to make these dreams come true? That's why it starts with yourself. The second part is equal voice. That's the other thing that Google found, is that when people have a voice, when they are heard, amazing results happen. So if you just look at your environments of how do we foster these two things, psychological safety, equal voice, amazingness will happen. Whether this is in your team, in your department, in your organization. You can apply this no matter where you are. And I'm going to give you one concrete rule of how do we get this safety, how do we get this equal voice, is to listen. It's that we spend less time talking, we zip up our mouths, and we listen. And there are three kinds of listening I'm going to share with you that are really, really important to get good at. So I'm giving you the concrete steps of what to focus on so you can get good at showing up and getting the results you want. Number one is listen to yourself. Whether it's when you go jogging in the morning, whether you have a meditation practice, whether you take time to close your eyes and simply breathe and check in with yourself. Paying attention to yourself is the most important thing, because when you put the oxygen mask on yourself first, then you can help others. So if you don't have anything right now in your personal practice of looking after yourself, mind, heart, spirit, body, please go look at that. It starts with you. The other one is listen to people. Especially executives, really listen to them, what it is that they want, even if it's different from what you want, to really listen. Listen, listen, listen. Listen to your kids, listen to your partner. If you really listen to them, amazing stuff's going to happen. You're going to grow very quickly. Very, very quickly. The third listen is listen to the voice of the system. What does the system you're working with want for itself? Instead of sharing, this is what I want, we should do Agile. What does the system want? What does the team want? What does the department want? What does the leadership team want? What do they actually want? And spend time listening and understanding and asking questions what they want. I'll give you one question to ask the system, which is this. Why are we doing this Agile initiative? Why are we doing this Agile thing? And listen. And when we listen to what that is about, we can help accomplish that. And it stops becoming about doing Agile or being Agile. It's about what does the organization want for itself. Blah, 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 blah. And when you ask them this, you can see that Agile is never the goal. Agile is never the goal. And when we drop Agile as the goal, beautiful things will happen. This is the very first thing that will happen to you when you start listening, is Agile will stop being the goal. And we'll look at the broader organizational context of what we're trying to accomplish. And Agile, instead of being the goal, becomes a means to that end. Blah, 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 blah. So I'm going to actually, I don't think this is going to work now. We'll try. If this comes up with questions, we'll use this. I actually want to summarize here. I'm changing my mind of what I want to say. Ha, 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 ha. Let me go back to this. So this is the takeaway. I'll just close with this. That in our dreams, we're here because of this thing called Agile. And when we take a step back and let go of this as the goal and look at this bigger context and help leaders, see if that's really listened, see if that's what they want for themselves, and listen to ourselves so we can help them with that, then we can actually invite this thing that we have in our dream, in our hearts called Agile. Okay. I'll take a few questions. If you have a question, please stand up and ask. Please. Yeah. So the question is, what about equal voice? Equal voice means every voice is heard. Of course, different people have different experiences, different understandings, so it's going to get it's not talking about making decisions. It's saying that people are heard. That if someone has something to contribute, their contributions are welcomed. That's what it means. It doesn't mean that everyone proceeds equally in decision making. That's an Agile misunderstanding. In really healthy organizations, you have experts making decisions based on what's most important when they consult and listen to other people for input on that. It's not we all make decisions together. That's not what happens in healthy organizations. That's some sort of sometimes an Agile misunderstanding. Yes, other questions? Yeah, so the question is, how do we implement this culture bubble in a cross-cultural team? So usually these bubbles are possible when we have a tight container, right? Usually everyone's sitting together and there's high trust or there's something like that. We need some way for people to feel connected with each other. So if people are in different locations, we fly them together. If they're in the same physical location, we often put them in the same team environment so they can build up that connection where they start seeing each other as human beings, where they start valuing each other, they start having trust. When we start building up those connections, that's how we create that. That's how we foster it. And it's about people connecting as human beings. So that's really what it comes down to. Does that help? Okay, great. Thank you. Other questions?
Why we should be agile?
Oh, okay. So they're saying Agile is not a goal. What are some examples of why we should be Agile? When we move to this broader organizational context and we listen to leaders and them seeing what's needed to make this organization vibrant and thriving in the future, that's what we focus on. Most organizations we work at, put up your hand if your organization's ready to compete against Google. Okay, a few people. Yeah, that's usually what organizations are going to be going for. If they're truly looking at how do we show up, right? So it's a question of what does that organization need to do to grow from where it is. It's not about some, oh, agile is this thing, it'll fix things. That mentality doesn't work. That's why we have all these culture challenges. It's looking, our organization's here. What's our dream for organization? Okay. And of course, agile will help us get there, but agile's not the goal. It's not the star we're looking for. In every organizational context, when we listen to it, listen to the system, we'll have a different answer for that. And sometimes that answer is going to shift over time. Sometimes it's very tactical. We need to focus on very tactical things to create safety. And then later, when there's space and time, we can focus on the bigger thing of how do we create a sustainable company. I am out of time. I thank you so much for listening today. Thank you so much.